The room smells of iron and sweat. A boy's scream rattles the walls, then vanishes under the press of a cloth shoved between his teeth. You don't choose this moment, it's chosen for you. Hands pin you down. You feel the edge of a blade, cold as winter steel. And with one motion, your entire life is divided into before the knife, and after it. Blood pools, fever waits, and survival is not guaranteed. But if you live, you're no longer a son, no longer a man. You're something else, something society barely has a name for. You were meant to father children. Instead, your body is rewritten. Your destiny redirected, not towards family. Not towards freedom, but towards the service of emperors, sultans, and kings. And the dark joke is this: one cut took away your manhood, and gave you the keys to the most forbidden rooms in history. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. From the palaces of Byzantium to the forbidden city of China, from the Topkapi harem of the Ottomans to the mule courts of Delhi, boys have been cut and remade for centuries. The knife comes when you are still a child, usually between the ages of 8 and 12. Old enough to survive the pain, young enough that your body can still be reshaped by it. Sometimes the whole organ is taken, sometimes only the testicles. The word sometimes makes no difference, the result is the same. You are no longer a boy in the eyes of the world. The procedure is crude. A knife or shard of glass, hot oil or cauterizing iron. No anesthesia, no understanding of infection. In Ming China, survival rates were brutal. Some records suggest fewer than 1 in 5 lived through it. If you died, your family mourned for a week. If you lived, they bragged for a lifetime. And why? Because to your parents, your body was currency. A father could trade his son's fertility for a chance at the emperor's favor. A poor farmer could buy his family's survival at the cost of your manhood. Dark joke. Your parents just traded your future grandchildren for a new donkey. You emerge from the knife. Either broken or reborn, you will never father children. But in the twisted arithmetic of empire, you've just been granted the one qualification kings value above all else. You cannot create a dynasty of your own, which means, in their eyes, you can be trusted. The knife is only the beginning. What comes after is worse. For weeks, you lie feverish, shivering in sweat-soaked straw. Blood trickles down your thighs, sometimes for days. Infection claims many before they ever see the inside of a palace. Those who survive are scarred not just in flesh, but in every breath that follows. Your voice betrays you first. High, thin, and sharp, the kind of voice that makes a courtier smirk before bowing. Beard, it will never come. Your cheeks remain smooth no matter how many winters pass. Your body redistributes itself strangely. Fat clings to your hips and chest. Your limbs grow soft. Your frame neither masculine nor feminine, but something in between. In the Chinese court, you are given a title, the clean-bodied person. Clean because nothing of manhood remains. In the Ottoman harem, you're simply the eunuch, a word that clings to you tighter than any robe. You don't need to introduce yourself. People can see what you are before you speak. In marketplaces, children stare. On the palace steps, soldiers avert their gaze. Among courtiers, you are indispensable and untouchable. Dark humor. You've become living proof of a paradox. Society needs you desperately, but never lets you forget you're not entirely human in their eyes. Every mirror confirms it. You are not the boy your parents sold. You are not the man you might have been. You are something other than an unfinished story carved into flesh. And from now on, that story belongs to the empire. The palace swallows you whole, its gates close behind you, and the outside world may as well be another planet. Marriage, forbidden. Children, impossible. And normal life, that word no longer applies. What you are now is property, but property kept close to the beating heart of power. In Byzantium, eunuchs rise higher than many nobles. With no bloodline of your own, you're seen as safe. No heirs to threaten dynasties. No secret ambitions to pass down. Some of the greatest generals of the Byzantine Empire, like Narses in the 6th century, were eunuchs, commanding armies that bent kingdoms to Constantinople's will. In the Ottoman Empire, your life coils itself around the marble halls of Topkapi Palace. The Kaisler Akasi, the chief black eunuch often taken as a child from Sudan or Ethiopia, holds the keys to the Sultan's harem. Imagine the irony: you've been stripped of manhood, yet you control access to hundreds of the most beautiful women in the empire. Every whispered letter, every silk-draped intrigue, passes through your hands. You are the gatekeeper to desire itself. At the Chinese Ming court, you'd be in the Forbidden City, shadowing the emperor's every step. You would dress him, guard his bedchamber, even taste his food. And with that closeness came power, sometimes greater than that of ministers and scholars who spent their lives studying for it. The joke, of course, writes itself: lose your manhood, gain the empire. Your body is mutilated, but your access is absolute. You may not be allowed to build a family of your own, but you can make dynasties with a single whispered word. And so, while the world sees you as less than a man, emperors and sultans know the truth: you are both servant and spy, shadow and key. The knife took your body, but strangely, it gave you something else: access to a ladder most men could never climb. In a world where bloodlines and heirs defined politics, you were the one man no dynasty had to fear, and that made you indispensable. In China's Ming dynasty, eunuchs became more than attendants, they became power brokers. Take Wei Zhongshan (1568–1627), who rose from obscurity to effectively rule the empire. Ministers bowed to him, generals obeyed him, and entire provinces trembled at his name. Historians call him corrupt. But the truth is simpler: a man who had nothing to lose had everything to gain. The Byzantine Empire took this logic to its extreme. Eunuchs weren't just servants, they could be generals, bishops, even saints. Men like Narses, the eunuch who crushed the Ostrogoths in Italy in the 6th century, commanded armies larger than most kings ever dreamed of. The Byzantine court believed the eunuch could be trusted in positions too sensitive for a man with heirs. After all, how could you scheme for a throne your children would never inherit? And yet, here's the irony: the very act that stripped you of power over your own body made you unstoppable in politics. The knife cut away your future as a father, but it also cut away suspicion. In a palace filled with paranoia, you were the one man emperors could trust not to betray them for a bloodline of your own. It's a paradox history never tires of repeating. The powerless became powerful precisely because of their powerlessness. You were broken to serve, and in that breaking, you became unbreakable. Your power comes at a price. Everyone hates you. Nobles whisper that you're unnatural. A man and maid, priests and scholars call you a walking sin. And yet, they bow, because a eunuch's whisper in the emperor's ear carries more weight than a general's army. The hatred is constant. In the Ottoman Empire, even the most powerful black eunuchs at Topkapi Palace lived under threat. A single accusation of corruption, real or invented, and you might be dragged into a courtyard and strangled with a silk cord. No blood spilled. No trace left. Just silence. In China's Tang dynasty, eunuchs weren't just servants, they were kingmakers. Their control of the imperial guards meant they could overthrow emperors as easily as they served them. In 189 CE, the infamous 10 eunuchs dominated the Han court, sparking rebellion that helped collapse the dynasty. Later, in the 9th century, eunuch-backed coups became so common that no emperor slept easy in the Forbidden City. And still, the paradox: you can't pass down land, titles, or sons. You'll never start a dynasty of your own, so your only legacy is intrigue, alliances spun like spider webs, secrets traded in the dark, empires bent around your silence. It's the cruel joke of your existence. Men call you less than human, yet fear you as more than human. You've been broken, remade, and now you are the shadow everyone sees but no one dares to touch. When the palace gates close behind you, they never open again. For soldiers, there is glory. For nobles, there are heirs. For you, there is only silence. You're forbidden from marriage, from love, from fatherhood. In Confucian China, where a man's honor lived and died with his sons, you are a dead branch on the family tree. No sons to burn incense at your shrine. No daughters to weep at your grave. You exist in service, and when service ends, so do you. Some eunuchs tried to cheat fate. A few adopted boys in secret, paying families to carry their name forward. Others built shrines not to ancestors, but to themselves, a desperate attempt to be remembered when bloodlines failed. Many turned to religion, seeking solace where society gave none. In Byzantium, eunuchs became priests and even patriarchs, their castration reframed as holy purity. In Ming China, eunuchs offered sacrifices at temples, praying not for power, but for the warmth of family they'd never hold. And yet, the truth hangs heavy. You walk among emperors, but you die alone. Dark humor whispers at your back. Your family tree doesn't grow, it just stops. You're the period at the end of your lineage's sentence. For a man who was cut down as a boy, you now stand taller than generals. And the Ottoman Empire, the Kaiser Akasi, the chief black eunuch, could decide which concubine entered the Sultan's bed that night. From the shadows of Topkapi, you pulled the strings of dynasty itself. If a concubine bore a son, you had midwife the future of the empire without ever touching a woman. In Ming China, eunuchs commanded the Grand Canal, the arteries of grain that fed Beijing. They ran the treasury, the secret police, and sometimes even the armies. The Yongle Emperor entrusted eunuch Admiral Zheng He 1371–1433 to sail across the Indian Ocean with fleets larger than anything Europe would see for centuries. Byzantine emperors placed eunuchs at their side in court and in the field, precisely because they could never build dynasties of their own. The paradox was perfect. Powerless in body, but trusted with absolute power in empire. And yet, every step upward placed you closer to the blade. Kings feared you for what you knew, queens relied on you to guard their secrets, and soldiers spat behind your back. One whisper of corruption, one rumor of betrayal, one accusation too sharp, and the same ruler who dined with you last night would order you flogged, exiled, or strangled with silk cord before dawn. Your life was proof of the empire's cruelest joke. The knife that took your manhood also carved your path to power, and kept it pressed at your throat forever. But power, like an empire, never lasts. In China, the fall of the Ming dynasty in 1644 was laid at the feet of eunuchs like Wei Zhongshan, whose corruption became legend. To this day, his name is shorthand for treachery. When Beijing burned, so too did the reputation of those who had once ruled from the shadows, and the Ottoman Empire, the harem system that had made black eunuchs indispensable, began to crumble. By the 19th century, under pressure from reformers and Western powers, the imperial harem was dismantled, its gates closed forever. With it went the centuries-old role of eunuchs as guardians of the Sultan's private world. In Byzantium, they had vanished long before with the fall of Constantinople in 1453. The purple-robed eunuchs of Hagia Sophia faded into dust and memory across civilizations. The backlash was the same. Eunuchs were blamed for decadence, betrayal, and collapse. They had no children to defend their names, no dynasties to guard their honor. History became their enemy's pen. You lived without heirs, and so your legacy was left for others to write. And yet, you remain, feared, pitied, whispered about in chronicles and folklore, a symbol of ambition without lineage, of sacrifice twisted into power. The irony: you gave up everything personal, your body, your bloodline, yet you stood closer to kings than any general, any noble, any heir. Sometimes you were the servant who bowed deepest. Sometimes you were the shadow that moved the throne itself. You were never meant to rule, yet you stood in the shadows of kings, and sometimes you were the hand that moved the throne. Would you choose a life of power without family, or family without power? Subscribe, because history is full of lives cut short, yet never forgotten.